Breaking news out of England.
During the glittering celebrations for Prince William's birthday, an innocent children's game unexpectedly unearthed a secret powerful enough to unsettle the throne itself. By pure chance, Princess Charlotte stumbled upon a box hidden beneath the bed in Charles and Camilla's bedroom. Inside it lay Queen Elizabeth's emerald ring. When King Charles was informed, the discovery sparked a flood of troubling questions. How could a priceless heirloom that vanished mysteriously after Diana's death resurface in his and Camilla's private quarters? Who had concealed it there, and for what reason? From the instant the ring came to light, events accelerated quickly. Charles began a discreet inquiry. Camilla made a series of unsettling moves, and unseen forces worked quietly to recover the incriminating evidence. In the end, every thread of suspicion pointed toward one unmistakable name: Camilla. Was the ring the missing piece in a plot designed to rewrite royal history? And if the truth finally emerges, who will be forced to bear the consequences? In June 2025, Windsor was radiant as it marked Prince William's birthday. From the towering gates draped in national flags to the lavishly decorated Great Hall within, every element was arranged to honor the future king. Esteemed guests arrived in succession, reporters clustered outside, and inside the palace, a formal banquet unfolded with stately elegance. Applause rang out, champagne flowed freely, and soft classical melodies filled the air. As the evening drew to a close and guests slowly took their leave, Windsor settled into calm once more. Yet for the royal children, the celebration was far from over. Princess Charlotte, dressed in a flowing white gown, and Prince Louis, smart in his miniature formal suit, clasped hands and raced through the ancient corridors. They launched into a game of hide-and-seek within Clarence House, a space usually reserved for solemn gatherings of adults. Their carefree laughter bounced off the stairwells, breaking the palace's usual air of formality. Bold and quick-thinking, Charlotte searched for a hiding place in a room seldom entered, the bedroom shared by Charles and Camilla. Moving quietly, she slipped beneath the large bed. As she did, her small hand grazed an odd gap in the wooden floor. Driven by curiosity, she carefully worked it open, uncovering a concealed compartment. Inside was a dark wooden box, worn by age yet solid, hidden so discreetly it seemed as though it had never been there. The box itself was modest in size, its lid firmly sealed, but it was enough to capture a child's imagination. Charlotte tugged it free, tucked it into the folds of her skirt, and hurried away before Louis could discover her hiding place. To her, it was merely a thrilling prize from the game. But within the long history of the royal family, that box guarded a secret of immense consequence. The following day, while spending time with her grandfather, Charlotte mentioned her discovery as if it were nothing unusual. Her innocent remark drew little attention until Charles saw the wooden box for himself. His expression shifted instantly, eyes widening in unmistakable shock. With unsteady hands, he lifted the lid, and the room fell silent. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching the surface of an ancient and priceless jewel, a brilliant emerald ring. This was no ordinary piece of jewelry. The ring had once belonged to his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who treasured it and later presented it to Princess Diana during a state visit many years earlier. At the time, the press hailed it as a powerful emblem, a symbol of the connection between two influential and compassionate women in the royal family. Photographs of Diana wearing the ring appeared on front pages around the world, forever linked to memories of a brilliant yet tragic chapter in history. Now, that same heirloom had surfaced in the most unexpected location: the private bedroom of Charles and Camilla. Why would a ring given to Diana, an item that should have been safeguarded in the royal collection after her death, be hidden beneath the floorboards in a simple box without record or explanation? The unanswered question lingered heavily, leaving Charles frozen in thought. Years earlier, the ring's disappearance had fueled public speculation, yet no official account had ever been offered. Its sudden reappearance at Clarence House felt like the recovery of a long-missing piece of a troubling puzzle. Charles closed the box, but his gaze darkened with unspoken resolve. Those present, only a few trusted individuals, understood that this discovery went far beyond a piece of jewelry. It touched on dignity, legacy, and authority. The ring had the power to sway public sentiment, reopen chapters of history the royal family preferred to keep sealed, and become a tool for anyone intent on probing the fraught past between Diana and Camilla. Without realizing it, Charlotte's innocent game of hide-and-seek had unlocked the entrance to a far-reaching conspiracy. Clarence House now stood at the center of a revelation capable of unsettling the entire royal family. Along the long corridors of Clarence House, word traveled swiftly. It did not take long for Camilla to hear what had happened. While playing hide-and-seek with her brother Louis, Princess Charlotte had pulled a small wooden box from beneath their bedroom bed, clutching it as she ran down the stairs. A servant had seen the moment, murmured it to others, and the story reached Camilla almost at once. That single detail was enough to make her go still. The box, one she herself had hidden after Diana's death, had now ended up in a child's hands. To anyone else, it was merely an unremarkable wooden container. To Camilla, it was a secret powerful enough to erase her entirely. It was Camilla who had concealed the emerald ring after Diana passed away. In those days, while the royal family mourned and the nation grieved, she quietly ensured the jewel Queen Elizabeth had given to Diana was removed from sight. For her, hiding the ring was not simply about putting away an object. It was an act of control. She believed that by making it disappear, she could dull Diana's memory and weaken one of the last symbols linking the late princess to the queen. That afternoon, Camilla entered Charles's study, where he sat reviewing documents. He looked up, his gaze searching her face. "I heard the children were in the bedroom," she said carefully, keeping her tone light. "I hope they didn't upset anything." Charles closed the papers in his hands and replied evenly, "Charlotte brought me a box. Something I believed had been lost forever. Quite an odd discovery." Camilla hesitated for the briefest moment, then smiled. "There's so many old belongings in this house," she said. "Even I can't keep track of them all. Are you certain you're not mistaken?" Charles leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I could never forget it. The emerald ring my mother gave to Diana. After the accident, it vanished from the palace records. And now it appears in our bedroom." Camilla turned away, refusing to meet his eyes. The silence between them grew heavy. She said nothing further, but she knew Charles suspected her. The box was no longer secure. If he truly decided to act, years of careful concealment would unravel in an instant. Suddenly, Charles rose from his chair, anger flashing through his restraint. "Do you think I'm blind?" he snapped. "This is proof you were involved. You're the only one with free access to our room. Return what you took from my mother and from Diana, or you will regret ever touching the royal legacy." Camilla's face drained of color, yet she remained silent beneath the force of his fury. That evening, her car left Clarence House without attention, heading toward a residence on the southern edge of London. Inside a small room with tightly drawn curtains, pale yellow light fell across a wooden table. Waiting there was a familiar figure, Stephen Hargreaves, once a royal aide, now working as a bodyguard for a powerful politician. "It's been a long time," Camilla began. Stephen inclined his head. "You sent for me, so I came. This must be serious." Fixing him with a steady stare, Camilla spoke firmly. "There's a wooden box. It was once in Clarence House, but Charles has moved it. Inside is something that must never come to light. I need you to get it back, no matter the cost." Stephen frowned. "Stealing from the palace? Security is tighter than ever. Guards on rotation, cameras everywhere." Camilla leaned back calmly. "You know Clarence House better than most. You served there. I don't need advice, I need results. If you succeed, you'll be rewarded accordingly." He remained silent for a long moment, then gave a slight nod. "I owe you a favor." "Fine, I'll do it. But you must promise, if anything goes wrong, my name stays out of it." "You have my word," Camilla replied quietly. They went over the details, the timing, midnight, when the palace lay in deep stillness. The route, a side entrance used by technical staff rarely watched. The objective, an auxiliary apartment where Charles sometimes stored personal items, likely where the box was now kept. There were no documents to sign, no records to leave behind, only an order and an understanding. As Camilla stepped back into the night, she knew she had made her first move. There was no alternative. If the emerald ring remained with Charles, suspicion would harden into certainty. But if it vanished once more, he would be left without proof. As darkness settled, lights still glowed within Clarence House. Yet beneath that calm exterior, a silent contest had begun. On one side stood Charles, whose eyes were closing in on the truth. On the other was Camilla, determined to erase the final piece of evidence. And the emerald ring, once just a jewel, had become the heart of a confrontation whose outcome no one could foresee. Morning settled quietly over Clarence House, yet Charles had been seated in his study since dawn, motionless and deep in thought. The wooden box rested on the table before him, its lid slightly ajar, the emerald inside casting a cold green glimmer across the surface. He waited for William. When William entered, he bowed briefly to his father and took a seat opposite him. As Charles slid the box across the table, the air in the room seemed to grow heavier. "I want you to examine this carefully," Charles said at last, his voice deliberate. William stared at the jewel, the light catching his features and leaving him momentarily speechless. "I've seen it in photographs. Mother wore it. Is this truly that ring?" Charles nodded, his hand pressing firmly on the box. "It vanished after your mother died. Palace records only listed it as missing. And now it turns up in my bedroom, shared with Camilla." Silence closed in around them. William finally looked up, his gaze sharp and guarded. "Are you absolutely certain? Could this be some coincidence?" "There are no coincidences within this family," Charles replied coolly. "Only decisions and schemes. And this time, I believe she has crossed a line." William's hand tightened, though he restrained himself. "What do you want me to do?" Charles shut the lid with finality. "Take it. Keep it somewhere secure, Kensington, anywhere you trust. No one must know, not even those closest to you. I need time. This is no longer just a keepsake, it is proof. William inclined his head in agreement. The exchange ended there, but both men understood that something irreversible had begun. 2 days later, a discreet convoy departed Windsor. Officially, Charles was simply inspecting royal properties. In truth, he was heading to Ray Mill House, Camilla's private home. He suspected that if she had hidden one heirloom, there might be others concealed there as well. It was a place she frequented alone, far from the watchful eyes of the palace. The drive through Wiltshire past tranquil summer fields, peaceful enough to mask the storm beneath Charles's thoughts. Ray Mill House soon came into view, red brick walls, carefully manicured gardens, and a roof softened by moss. To an outsider, it was a conventional country estate. To Charles, it was a sealed vault, waiting to be opened. The butler greeted him, clearly unsettled by the unexpected visit. "Your Majesty, Her Majesty isn't here. Shall we wait for her return?" Charles dismissed the suggestion with a wave. "No, I want everything inspected now, every room, nothing is to remain closed." One by one, the rooms were opened. The sitting room, dining room, library, bedroom. Everything appeared orderly, untouched. Then, at the far end of the corridor, a small oak door drew Charles's attention. Its lock shone brightly, oddly new against the aged wood around it. He gestured. An aide stepped forward with a master key. The lock clicked, the door swung open, and a darkened space was revealed. The air smelled of old timber and damp velvet. When the light was switched on, everyone froze. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with velvet-lined cases and wooden boxes, all arranged with meticulous care. Charles moved forward, opening them one by one. There lay his mother's pearl necklace. Nearby, the diamond earrings Diana had worn in Paris, the Spencer brooch. One after another, priceless heirlooms gleamed under the light. What unsettled him most were the labels attached to them. Handwritten notes, deliberate and calculated. Gift to Camilla. Memento from Diana. Passed down by Elizabeth. Charles picked one up, his voice low and controlled. Forged, every one of them. The ink was recent, the handwriting inconsistent with either Elizabeth's or Diana's. The wording was clearly invented, designed to transform royal heirlooms into Camilla's personal possessions, as if they had been officially given to her, bypassing all records. An aide immediately photographed every item and every note. Another carefully logged details and sealed several smaller pieces. No one spoke much, but outrage was evident on every face. Charles stood in silence, scanning the shelves. This was no longer about a single ring. It was an entire fabricated archive, a deliberate attempt to rewrite royal history, elevating Camilla's place as though she stood alongside, or even above, Elizabeth and Diana. He issued his orders without hesitation. Document everything. Compile full files. There must be no leaks. Nothing is to be disclosed until I decide. The return journey was tense and wordless. Charles sat back in the car watching fields slide past the window. When his phone rang, he answered. William's voice came through. "Did you find anything, Father?" "More than I expected," Charles replied evenly. "Not just the ring. An entire room of heirlooms, each marked with false claims. The truth is undeniable." There was a brief pause before William spoke again. "Will you reveal it?" "Not yet," Charles said. "If I act now, she'll destroy whatever remains. Keep the wooden box secure. When the moment is right, I'll move." Another silence followed, then William answered firmly. I'll do as you say. Be ready, Father. When you need me, I'll stand with you." Charles ended the call and leaned back as dusk settled outside. Streetlights flashed briefly across his face before fading into darkness. The confrontation had not yet reached the public eye, but the evidence was already secured. And from the moment he left Ray Mill House, Charles knew one thing for certain: there was no path back. At the very moment Charles was absorbed in his investigation, the shadowy plan Camilla had set in motion was unfolding exactly as she intended. That night, London lay beneath a sky thick with clouds, no moon, no stars. Clarence House was wrapped in near silence, broken only by the faint yellow glow of corridor lamps spilling across the worn stone tiles. Along the moss-covered outer wall, a lone figure moved cautiously toward the side entrance used by technical staff. The man, once a royal aide, now a bodyguard, clutched his tools firmly, every motion precise, as though practiced countless times. A soft click sounded as the lock yielded. He slipped inside, gliding down the empty corridor with carefully measured steps. Everything was proceeding according to Camilla's design. The auxiliary apartment came into view, its wooden door barely visible in the dim light. He paused, knelt, and began working the lock. Unaware of this intrusion, Kate remained awake in the surrounding gardens. The days-long ceremonies had left her restless, and she chose to walk quietly, listening to the wind stirring the leaves. As she neared the auxiliary apartments, an unfamiliar noise caught her attention. The faint scrape of metal, the unnatural groan of a hinge. She stopped, listening intently. A thin line of yellow light seeped through a door frame, a shadow flickering across the frosted glass. Her instincts immediately went on alert. Without hesitation, Kate contacted the guards. Within moments, the once silent corridors erupted into urgency. Realizing he had been discovered, the intruder attempted to flee by the same route he had entered. But the pounding footsteps of the guards closed in fast. Shouts rang out, torches flashed harsh beams of light, and the chase ended almost as quickly as it began. Within minutes, he was restrained, metal cuffs snapping shut around his wrists, their sharp clink echoing through the night. The man was escorted to a temporary interrogation room inside Clarence House. At first, he refused to speak, his gaze shifting away in avoidance. But faced with mounting pressure and the certainty of being turned over to the police, his resistance collapsed. His confession spilled out, blunt and cutting. He had acted under Camilla's direct orders, with one clear objective: to recover the wooden box containing the emerald ring. Every word was carefully documented, witnessed, and signed, transforming his statement into solid evidence. Once Kate learned who he was and why he had come, she quietly devised a countermeasure. She instructed him to report back to Camilla as if the theft had succeeded, claiming he had secured the ring. The goal was to mislead Camilla and leave her unguarded. In return for cooperation and the promise of leniency, he agreed and immediately made contact with Camilla as instructed. At the same time, Kate informed Charles of the entire incident, adding a living witness to his growing body of proof. When Camilla received the message, relief washed over her. In her mind, she pictured Charles searching Clarence House, finding nothing, left with no tangible proof to accuse her. Without the ring, suspicion would amount to nothing more than whispers. Alone, in the darkness of her private room, she allowed herself a satisfied smile, convinced she had won. But the truth lay elsewhere. At Windsor, Charles not only possessed the emerald ring, He also had the intruder's full confession. He understood then that the situation had escalated. What had begun as the mystery of a missing jewel had now revealed itself as a coordinated conspiracy. That morning, London's sky hung in a dull, oppressive gray, heavy clouds mirroring the mood inside Clarence's house. In the study, Charles had already arranged everything on the long oak table. Photographs of the jewelry discovered at Ray Mill House, the intruder's interrogation transcript collected by Kate, the forged notes attached to each heirloom, and detailed reports from security staff. The files formed a thick stack, silent, weighty, and accusatory. William entered, accompanied by 2 trusted aides. The atmosphere stilled the room. The only sound was the faint rustle of paper as Charles slowly turned over the photographs. He spoke without preamble, his voice low and unwavering. "This is the full record, not a single ring, but Queen Elizabeth's jewels, Diana's keepsakes, all hidden at Ray Mill House, and every piece carries a fabricated note claiming it as a gift. This isn't careless storage, it's a deliberate attempt to rewrite history." Nothing more needed to be said. The images alone were suffocating. Familiar pearls, glittering earrings, the Spencer brooch, objects embedded in public memory, now transformed into proof of a calculated scheme. William stood in silence, tension visible in his eyes. After a pause, he asked quietly, "What do you intend to do, Father?" Charles leaned back, fingers interlaced, considering his response before answering carefully. "I won't take this to the press yet. If I do, public outrage will explode, and the monarchy itself will be dragged into the storm. But I won't let the truth disappear either. I'll submit this file to the Royal Advisory Council. Once it's entered into official internal records, it can no longer be buried." One aide spoke cautiously, weighing each word. "If Your Majesty chooses to go public now, the backlash could be severe and unpredictable. Keeping this within the palace gives us control, at least until the next move." Charles nodded, resolve sharpening his gaze. "It stays internal for now, but this file will be backed up in multiple places. If Camilla denies it, if she pushes back, I'll be ready with a counter-strike." No one added anything further. The meeting was brief, yet its significance felt like a quiet declaration of war. That afternoon, Charles summoned Camilla to the main drawing room. The space was formal and bright, sunlight streaming through tall windows, yet the air felt uncommonly cold. A wooden box sat on the table. As Camilla entered, Charles opened it and placed the emerald ring at the center, final, unmistakable, leaving no room for evasion. He spoke plainly, without softening his tone. "I've uncovered what you hid at Ray Mill House, the pearl necklace, the diamond earrings, the Spencer brooch, along with forged notes. Will you continue to deny it?" Camilla froze for an instant, then curved her lips into a challenging smile. "You call that proof? A pile of old trinkets and vague scribbles? Who says they weren't given to me? You think you can accuse me on nothing but conjecture?" Charles stepped closer, his gaze sharp, his voice low yet slicing through the room. "Enough of the act, Camilla. I have witnesses, photographs, and the truth you tried to conceal in darkness, my mother's treasures, Diana's legacy, turned into tools for your ambitions. Do you truly believe you can manipulate royal history?" Camilla let out a cold laugh, her tone cutting and defiant. "This is absurd, Charles. You're inventing a fantasy to smear me. Those jewels are mine, legally given. You have nothing but paranoia and lies. Be careful. It's you who risks staining the crown." Charles slammed his hand onto the table, making the box shudder as his voice thundered. "Enough! Your lies won't mask the truth. The council will see everything. And understand this, there will be no mercy this time. You will answer for this betrayal, even if I have to tear the palace apart to do it." Camilla maintained a composed exterior, but the slight tremor in her shoulders betrayed her. The exchange ended not in shouting, but in a dense, cutting silence. Charles gathered the photographs and documents with deliberate care, arranging them like pieces set for the next move. Camilla left the room with steady steps, yet behind her lingered Charles's piercing gaze, the look of a man who finally held the key to the truth. That night, lights remained on at Clarence House, especially in Charles's study, where they burned later than usual. On the wooden table, the thick files lay neatly stacked and sealed. Each page was a blade, and once laid before the council, the file would become a sword aimed directly at Camilla's credibility. Charles sat alone for a long time. He knew the decision ahead would not only determine Camilla's fate, but also shape how the monarchy would be seen by the world. One misstep could shatter everything, yet doing nothing would allow history to be twisted. And that guilt would be his to bear. The following day, the palace's private meeting room was sealed off from the outside world. Royal advisors sat in a circle around a long table draped in green velvet. There was no press, no external observers, only Charles, Camilla, and the most trusted figures within the royal circle. A heavy tension filled the room. Everyone present knew this was no routine discussion. Charles spoke briefly before placing the wooden box on the table. Camilla instinctively recoiled, her shock difficult to conceal. She had been convinced the bodyguard had succeeded in removing the ring and that she was simply waiting for the right moment to reclaim it, believing all evidence against her was gone. Yet there it was, directly in front of her, firmly in Charles's possession. Without allowing her time to respond, Charles continued. He laid out photographs taken from the concealed room at Ray Mill House, the pearl necklace, the diamond earrings, the Spencer brooch, each paired with forged handwritten notes. One image followed another, each landing like an unforgiving blow. The advisors exchanged solemn glances, fully aware that this had gone far beyond suspicion. It was unmistakable proof of a calculated attempt to alter royal history. The moment of reckoning came when the intruder who had broken into Clarence House was escorted into the room. Under guard supervision, he confirmed his role without hesitation. Camilla had employed him and instructed him to recover the wooden box and the emerald ring. His testimony aligned perfectly with the existing evidence, security logs documenting Camilla's unauthorized entry into Diana's private room the day after the accident, supported by a servant's long-standing account. Every detail locked into place, forming a web from which there is no escape. Camilla struggled to maintain her composure, but her refusal to speak only reinforced what everyone already understood. Charles did not raise his voice. Calmly, he stated that the royal family could never permit anyone to misuse its heritage, turning collective memory into a tool for personal gain. He made it clear that the heirlooms of Elizabeth and Diana were not mere ornaments, but symbols bound to public trust and loyalty. To falsify or manipulate those symbols was, in essence, a betrayal of the crown itself. The decision was reached within that very meeting. To prevent an uncontrollable media storm, the matter would not be officially disclosed to the press. Nevertheless, the consequences for Camilla were unavoidable. She lost all standing within the palace, was required to withdraw from public life, and ceased appearing at official engagements. Although no formal explanation was given, the press quickly noticed her sudden absence and began speculating: illness, internal disputes, or a loss of favor. Once a constant presence on front pages, Camilla became little more than a name appearing in speculative side columns. The prolonged silence surrounding her only deepened public discomfort, and her image gradually shifted into that of an unspoken failure. By contrast, Charles, despite the personal shock, regained the confidence of both his family and the royal council. His willingness to confront the truth, even when it implicated his own wife, convinced others that he was a protector of royal heritage rather than an accomplice to deception. For Charles, this outcome was not a triumph but an obligation. He understood that the legacies of Elizabeth and Diana belonged not only to the monarchy but to the nation itself, and as sovereign, it was his duty to preserve them, free from distortion or personal ambition. What is your view on Camilla's deliberate actions in secretly hiding and falsifying the origins of royal treasures? Was Charles excessively severe in his response, or was his decision simply a necessary defense of the royal family? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You might enjoy it.